name's Mark. I'm one of the pastors here at Trillium. We've been looking at the motif of sacred journey or pilgrimage, and we found there to be 5 basic stages to journey: resist, release, receive, remember, return. We're now in the 4th week. We're looking at the 4th step or stage of sacred journey: remember. See, the point of our pilgrimages, our sacred journeys, is to remember who we are, to allow something deep inside of us that's fallen asleep to wake up. Our journeys often begin with resistance, even in the most innocent ways. But if we allow our resistance to be transformed into release, to yield to that moment in life, to embrace it even, then we find we move to the 3rd step, which is to receive. We receive blessing. We receive sometimes even a miracle. And in the miracle comes the unfolding of remembrance for us. We remember who we are. We remember what life's really about. We remember about what our purpose is in some kind of deep way. I remember years ago coming across Kubler-Ross. She wrote about the 5 stages of grief, 5 stages of grief and loss. And it's not so important about the specific stages or what they signify, but the idea that Kubler-Ross has in its essence, that life is a journey and grief is a journey. And when we have some major loss in our life, we go through a journey to the other end of acceptance. And that occurs when we have lost someone we deeply love, or we've lost a relationship that's very important to us, or we've lost a favorite pet. Perhaps we've lost a job that's been really critical to our identity, or we've lost a business, or even if we've lost our favorite cap. I remember coming back on the Chichiman from Manitoulin, and I went to the front of the boat, and I had my favorite cap on, and the wind was so strong there, it just blew my cap right off before I had a chance to do anything. And I saw the cap float on the air and down onto the water top, and I just sat there looking at it for a few moments. And then I went inside deeply shocked. I was in denial of what had happened. I came back out a couple of minutes later, and even though the cap was long gone, I was looking at the water, unable to believe what had just happened. It's interesting, even losing your cap can cause you to go through the journey of loss. And as I say, we believe that we're on a sacred journey that's even bigger than grief, that has these 5 basic stages or steps that we go through. Jesus' perhaps his most famous miracle was the feeding of the 5,000. It's found in all 4 Gospels. One of the few stories that's found in all 4 Gospels. The story begins with Jesus out teaching a throng, a multitude of 5,000 or more people in a somewhat secluded place. And it says in the story that as evening started to approach, the disciples came to Jesus and they ordered Jesus to send the crowd away. They ordered Jesus to send the crowd away to find food and nourishment. They didn't have the resources. The disciples didn't have enough money to feed all the people. And in a sense, they're resisting the moment, this moment in life. They're resisting it. And Jesus often sees life so differently from the disciples. And instead of resisting the moment, he releases to it. He yields to it. He embraces it. And he says to the disciples, go out and see how much food there is out there in the crowd. And they go out and they scurry about trying to find food. And they come back and they have 5 loaves and 2 fishes. That's it. Really, for a crowd of thousands, it's nothing. And the very thing they were most afraid of is now occurring. And I suppose if Jesus was in a moment of resistance, he could have upbraided them or criticized them, berated them. He could have, in a sense, made the problem them. And I suppose that's how we do it in life. Sometimes we resist life by criticizing or by berating circumstances, by in a sense, critiquing what's going on. And that's not what Jesus does. He actually takes the 5 loaves and the two fishes, and he looks up to heaven, and he gives God thanks. And then he brings them down again, and he gives them to the disciples, and they take them out to the crowd. And it says in the story that the abundance was so great that there was 12 big baskets full of leftovers. Now, later on, the disciples forgot about this feeding of the 5,000. They themselves didn't have any food. They forgot to bring bread with them, and they're discussing with each other what they're going to do about it. And Jesus hears them, And he, in a moment of frustration, he upbraids them for their forgetfulness, for their lack of remembering what had occurred. And it's important to note that the purpose of the miracle of the feeding of the 5,000, why Jesus did it, wasn't to prove that he was some kind of miracle worker, some wonder worker. And it wasn't even to demonstrate the power of God at work in life. The whole point of the miracle was to wake up the disciples to who they were, who Jesus is, of course, and who God is, but most importantly, to wake the disciples up to who they are. You see, when we have moved past resistance, we've moved through release, we move to that place of receiving, often a blessing will come to us, a miracle even. And Jesus receives the blessing of heaven in that moment of the feeding of the 5,000, and a miracle unfolds. But the disciples don't wake up. See, they're still back resisting. They're resisting life. They haven't found release yet. They haven't yielded to the moment of life. And therefore, when that moment of miracle unfolds in their midst, they don't recognize it. And it doesn't wake them up. It doesn't help them remember the essence of who and what they're about in life. And there's Jesus' frustration. You know, so often in the franticness of the season of Christmas, we forget about the whole purpose of Christmas. The whole point of Christmas is for us to wake up to the truth of who we are through the birth of the Christ child in Bethlehem. In fact, the promise of the Scriptures is that our own sacred rebirth is waiting for us in the deepest part of ourselves. And if we journey in life to our hearts, we will find waiting for us our own rebirth. And it all begins by putting one foot in front of the other. There's that great song in one of the Christmas specials. Put one foot in front of the other, and soon you'll be walking out the door. Sacred journey is waiting for us. We just simply have to get up and begin it, to put that first footstep down and then make the second and the third. And the journey will begin, its movement in us, its motion in us will begin to take us home again to the truth. You are a sacred daughter, sacred son of God. The very power that moved through Jesus moves through you. You are called to be in life an extension of God's love and goodness. And I pray that you will embrace that for yourself. You'll open your hearts to receive. You will allow the miracle and the blessing of life to awaken you to the truth. Go in peace. Go in the Christmas spirit of love and service.